and I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
No, I'm sorry. The word you were looking for was gouging. Price gouging. The board is still yours, Towley.
Oh, man. I'm so high right now. I have no idea what's going on.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Econ and Decon. I appreciate you stopping by. Today we're going to talk about something that's been in the news lately. Now, this is not a current events show, but I do think that this topic is worth touching on before we move on to others because it is related to what we've been talking about for the last several videos. And that is the plan from Kamala Harris to attack prices both at the grocery store and for housing. Now, we're really going to have to dig deep to pick apart this plan because she really knows a lot about economics. Now, if you've watched my episode on corporate greed, there's a link in the corner right here. We talked about this in depth and you'll have a little bit of background on this topic in general. We talked about how corporate greed, while it obviously exists, is not really what's been driving the inflation of the last several years in the economy in general. And today we'll look a little bit more specifically at the grocery store sector. Now, this is a talking point that politicians love because it allows them to shift blame away from their own failed policies and towards the easy target of greedy corporations, which, look, everybody, knows that corporations are greedy. So it's a lot easier to shift the blame there than it is to take responsibility. But while corporations are greedy, politicians are greedy and stupid.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
So let's dive right into the grocery store issue. So how high are grocery store profits? Well, it turns out that this is actually one of the lowest profit sectors in the entire economy. So depending on exactly what you're looking at, grocery stores typically make profits of between 1.21% and about 3% as a high. The most reliable numbers that I can find, which all these links are in the description, are that the average grocery store is making a profit between 1.6% and 1.9%. It seems like Costco is about the most profitable grocery store in the country right now, and their net margin is 2.5%. According to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which comes out every month, food inflation in the United States, specifically from grocery stores, has amounted to about 23% since 2020. Now, if you've seen some of my previous videos where I talk about the CPI, you know that I think that it understates inflation all over the place. And again, I've got a link in the description to an article where a shopper in the spring of 2020 took a trip to Walmart and kept all the receipts, and then went back in October of 2023 and bought all the same items. The lowest inflation, the lowest increase in the prices of those items was butter. A pound of butter went up about 23% between 2020 and 2023. The highest thing on the list was turkey breast, which went up 114% in that same span. So again, the CPI matches the lowest possible item when you look at this actual proof of actual Walmart prices. This is pretty typical of the CPI. Even if we're going with the 23% number, how do you blame 23% inflation on the greed of companies that are making less than 2% profits?
That's the neat thing. You don't.
Even if these companies were making 0% profit, if somehow they were totally socialized and there was no downside to that, and everybody was selling everything at cost, that'd save you about 7 cents a pound on butter, save you like 8 cents on a loaf of bread, 12 cents on a jar of mayonnaise, 14 cents on a pound of turkey breast. That's the profit margin that these companies are working off of. You wouldn't even notice that. But what would be the downside? Very bad things. Now, anybody who knows the history of price controls really doesn't even need to watch this video. This is a terrible idea. They're not new, okay? Price controls go back at least as far as the Babylonians, but how well do they work?
That's the neat thing.
They don't. Price ceilings and price controls result in shortages, and it's not hard to figure out why. If you make it impossible for companies to make money selling a product, they'll stop selling that product. if a grocery store can't even make 1.9% profit on the food that they sell on this huge, incredibly expensive endeavor, then why would anybody get into it? And the companies that exist right now, why would they maintain their business? They're going to, at best, they're going to replace a lot of their items and a lot of their ingredients with lower quality ones. But what incentive is there not only for grocery stores to sell food and food distributors who are already on like a 0.8% margin? What incentive is there for them to get into this business? This is why people will get out of it, and farmers will get out of it, food distributors and wholesalers, grocery stores. If you remove the that 1.9% profit is the only reason you have so many choices in grocery stores. It's the only reason that anybody is selling food. And if you completely take that away, then you're going to get shortages. And this is not just in food. This is in every category that you do this to. Every category where you put a price ceiling, all you're doing is disincentivizing people to provide that item. So anything you put this to, you're going to end up getting shortages, which is why price controls in general are a stupid policy. They're a stupid, short-sighted policy. The more important the item, the more stupid it is to try to price control it. So controlling the price of food is dangerously stupid.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
Now, in the interest of fairness, here is a list of all of the places throughout history where government-imposed price controls have actually been a good thing for the people. Lastly, let's look at her plan to make housing more affordable. So there's two parts to her plan here. The first one is $25,000 in down payment assistance for certain people. Now, this won't be available to everybody. Only certain people will qualify for this program. But essentially, the effect that this is going to have is to raise demand for pricing. Okay, so number one, builders and sellers now can pad the prices of their houses by $25,000 because this is subsidized, and this is the effect that subsidies have. But number two, what you're doing by making it easier for people to buy a house through subsidies is you're increasing the demand for the product, which will further increase the price just through the increase in demand. So this is counterproductive in the long run. But to counteract the increase in demand this will cause, she does have a second part that is aimed at increasing the supply. I believe she said that we are going to build 3 million houses. Spoiler alert, the government doesn't build houses. What she means is that she's going to give tax incentives to builders in the hopes that that encourages them to build more houses. All right, but that's an important distinction. The government doesn't build houses. She is hoping to cut taxes for builders or give tax credits and hopes that that will result in an increase of supply. The problem here is that there are two main things that affect how many houses get built. One of them is the cost of materials. And like everything else since 2020, the cost of materials like lumber and concrete have exploded. And so material prices are very, very high. So that's part of this bigger problem of inflation throughout the economy. And her plan does nothing about that. The second obstacle to building more houses, the second thing that stops the supply from growing faster, is regulations and red tape. How difficult does the state or city make it for you to build new houses? That's why it's twice as expensive in California, or especially San Francisco, to build houses as it is in a place like Florida or Tennessee. This is a local issue. You cannot affect those local regulations from the federal government, from the presidency. But hey, don't let that get in the way of a popular talking point. And in Kamala Harris's defense, she might not even know that. To wrap up, to the extent that any of this could have helped, it would have been done already. As I mentioned, if you were going to impose price controls on anything, the time to do it was 2020, 2021, 2022, when the prices were actually going up very fast. Right now, the published inflation rate at grocery stores is like 1.1%. Again, I think that's understated, but it's about on par with the inflation rate before the pandemic. It's not going crazy really anymore, at least not officially. So to the extent that these things could have helped, it's too little too late. And if they could be done and they could work, why haven't they been done before? Why do we have to wait for Kamala Harris to get enough? She's already in the White House. If these are such obviously good plans, why didn't Joe Biden do them? Why isn't anybody doing them right now? To the extent that they have been tried in the past, they have failed spectacularly everywhere they've been tried. There's just not an example of price controls working in the long run. This is a talking point that is unfortunately very popular, but that she's using to try to get elected. But if it worked, they would have done it already. If it worked, Biden would have done it. We wouldn't have to wait 6 more months for this promise of how she's going to fix everything. Okay? Stop listening to these people. That about wraps us up for today. I appreciate you joining me. Again, these conversations are important. These talking points, this plan by Kamala is unfortunately popular because people don't know any better. Okay? So obviously, if you've enjoyed this video, if you've learned something, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. But as always, the most important thing is to share this with your friends. Okay? People are falling into these traps. People are believing these BS lines about these politicians that are going to save them. You have to share this. You have to get the word out. You have to have these conversations with people because there are people being fooled everywhere. So I appreciate you joining me again. If you want to support the channel, head on over to antitanktops.com. In the spirit of our Soviet-style price controls, I thought I'd wear this one, but there's a lot of good swag over there, so go check it out. Hopefully you'll find something you like. So again, that about wraps us up. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Econ and Decon signing out. Peace.